Guy wants to know, I was wondering how to install a pair of new brake calipers on a road bike. Let's start at the front of the bike. If you're replacing a pair of stock brakes, the safe route to go is to reuse the nut that came with the bike, as it will be made specifically to work with your fork. If you don't have the stock nut, you need to check to make sure that you have enough thread engagement between the nut and the brake anchor bolt. You should have at least 10 millimeters of thread engagement or overlap between the nut and brake anchor post to ensure that your brake is safe. There's an easy way to check this when you install your brake. Insert the anchor nut into the backside of the fork's brake mount bore until it bottoms out. Hold it in place with a 5mm Allen wrench. Then insert the brake anchor bolt from the front until it bottoms out and makes contact with the nut. Make sure that you have any washers required for the install in place on the brake anchor post before you start. The distance between the brake body or washer, if you're using one, and the fork will tell you how much thread engagement you'll have when the brake is installed. Before you tighten everything down, remove the brake anchor nut and push the brake into the fork until it bottoms out. Make sure that the brake pads clear the fork blades. If the pads are too close, you'll need to add washers to the brake anchor post and check it again. Be sure to recheck your brake anchor bolt thread engagement if you add any washers to the brake. With all of this done, you're ready to torque the nut down to the manufacturer's specification using a 5mm Allen socket and a torque wrench. Repeat this process at the rear. Nearly all rear brakes use the same length nut, so you're probably good there, but check it using the same process that I described for the fork. Now torque the rear brake down to the manufacturer's specification. With new brakes, you should use new cables and housing, or at least a new cable. With your housing cut to length that avoids any tight bends but still allows for component movement, it's time to install the brake cable. Slide the wire through the lever's cable anchor seat and into the cable exit port. Be careful to avoid popping any anchor assemblies or pivots out of the brake lever. This is a concern primarily on older Shimano brake levers. With the inner wire fully seated, it's time to anchor the cable at the brake. Make sure that the brake quick release switch is in the closed position. Hold the brake shut with one hand and anchor the cable with the other using a 5mm Allen wrench. A fourth hand tool can help with this part of the job. Then torque the cable anchor bolt to the manufacturer's specification. Center the brake roughly by loosening the brake anchor nut and tightening it back in the correct position. Don't forget to check your torque with a torque wrench. Now set up your brake pads. Pull the lever tight and hold it there. Loosen the brake pad anchor bolt, align the pad with the brake track of the rim, and then tighten the brake pad down again. Repeat this on the other pad. You may need to repeat the entire pad alignment process again if either of the pads is way off. Now fine-tune your centering with the centering adjustment bolt. Dial in the feel of your brakes with the brake barrel adjuster. Turn it counterclockwise to tighten the cable and turn it clockwise to loosen the cable. Cut the cable to length and crimp the end. If your brakes squeal after 20 good stops, tow in the brake pads by placing folded business cards behind the back section of the pad. Pull the brake lever tight, hold it there, loosen the pads, and then tighten them back down. If you want your question answered on Ask a Mechanic presented by Art Cyclery, send your inquiry to webletters@competitorgroup.com.